Jai. Yasodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Padavajikacharya Slavapudasatishimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBD Founder Sharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Padavajikacharya Slavapudasatishimad Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Ananta Gauri Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Shri Hajadas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Giridhar Shri Vasili Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shyamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Ganga Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Maharani Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Garanga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, we're going to be reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th Canto, Chapter 2, Text 37. Okay. And it's up on the board, okay. Shrinvan Grinan Samsmarayam Chachintayan. Shrinvan Grinan Samsmarayam Chachintayan. Namani Rupani Chamangalani Te. Namani Rupani Chamangalani Te. Kriyashu Yas Twach Chadanada Vindayor. Kriyashu Yas Twach Chadanada Vindayor. Avista Chaitana Bhavaya Kalpate. Avista Chaitana Bhavaya Kalpate. Shrinvan Grinan Sam Smarayam Chachintayan. Namani Rupani Chamangalani Te. Kriyasu Yachtvach Chadanada Vindayor. Avishta Chaitana Bhavaya Kalpate. Others, please. How about some uninitiated devotees among the men? Want to try? Anybody else? Okay, Madhajis? Anybody? Any of the Madhajis like to chant? Okay. Shrinvan, constantly hearing about the Lord. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. Grinan, chanting or reciting the holy name of the Lord and his activities. Samsmarayan, remembering, constantly thinking of the Lord's lotus feet and his form. Ja, and Chintayan, contemplating the transcendental activities of the Lord. Namani, his transcendental names. Rupani, his transcendental forms. Cha, also. Mangalani, which are all transcendental and therefore auspicious. Te, of your lordship. Kriyasu, in being engaged in the devotional service. Ya, he who. Twach Chaudana Aravindayo, at your lotus feet. Avishtachetaha, the devotee who is completely absorbed in such activities. Na, not. Bhavaya, for the material platform. Kalpate, is fit. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So in an attempt to keep a laser focus on book distribution, I asked permission if it was okay if I just read the last paragraph of the purport, and I was told that was okay. So I'm going to read the translation and the last paragraph of the purport, and then I'm going to get into the body of the class. So, translation. Even while engaged in various activities, devotees whose minds are completely absorbed at your lotus feet and who constantly hear, chant, contemplate, and cause others to remember your transcendental names and forms are always on the transcendental platform, and thus they can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So I believe this is the demigods speaking. Yeah, prayers by the demigods. So the demigods are addressing these prayers to Lord Krishna in the womb, I believe, at this point. In any event, so that's what the demigods said. And then Prabhupada in his purport, the last paragraph says, the word kriyashu, meaning by manual labor or by work, is important in this verse. One should engage in practical service to the Lord. In our Krishna consciousness movement, all our activities are concentrated upon distributing Krishna literature. This is very important. One may approach any person and induce him to read Krishna literature so that in the future he may also become a devotee. Such activities are recommended in this verse. Kriyashu yach twach charanara vindayo. Such activities will always remind the devotees of the Lord's lotus feet. By fully concentrating on distributing books for Krishna, one is fully absorbed in Krishna. This is samadhi. Om Gana Timirandasha Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmelitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Upakaramayam Dadati Swapadantikam. So once again, I'd like to thank Bhaktivikash Maharaj and the management of the Krishna Life Temple for inviting me here and giving me the opportunity to speak. I consider it a great honor, privilege. Thank you very much. I hope I can say something that will be beneficial and encourage everybody in their devotional service. So, Prabhupada's saying here in that paragraph from the purport about book distribution, he says very important. In our Krishna conscious movement, all our activities are concentrated upon distributing Krishna literature. This is very important. So I heard, I think it was Jai Maharaj, to be honest with you, who made this statement. It used to appear in the beginning of the Veda base that the statements of Prabhupada, depending upon where they appear, have a different hierarchy. There's a different hierarchy of authority. So the most authoritative statements are those which are found in the purports of his book. Oh, thank you. And then, the next would be something else, letters perhaps, and then, lectures and conversations, etc. So there's a hierarchy of authority. But the point is, and I'm sorry I don't remember the exact hierarchy, but what I do remember is that what's in the purports in the books was at the top. So the most authoritative statements of Prabhupada are found in the books. So here, this is the purport, 10th canto. This was written by Srila Prabhupada. This is early in the 10th canto. And Prabhupada's saying that this book distribution, he says, this is very important. So that's important for us. Because when the spiritual master is saying that, this is very important, that means it's very important for us. This is not the only place he says it, by the way. And so this is not like an isolated statement. I just received an email last night from Vijay Prabhu. I get emails from him on a regular basis. So as part of that email, he quoted gave some quotes that Prabhupada gave about book distribution. I think this one is, so I'll read just a couple of them, just so we can see that Prabhupada was consistently emphasizing book distribution. This is not an isolated statement. So I think this one's from 1972 or 3. He says, there is no doubt about it. Distributing books is our most important activity. A temple is a place not for eating and sleeping, but as a base from which we send out our soldiers to fight with Maya. So you are the expert in this field, referring to Ramaswar. Then another one goes, I like also your program of sending out your best men to teach the others. That is the actual process of Krishna consciousness, to train others. Continue this program so that in the future, and here's an interesting statement, in the future, every devotee in our movement will know the art of distributing books. This is approved by me. So that's just a couple. So this is very important. Prabhupada consistently emphasized the importance of book distribution. And here in this purport, he also mentions his reason for doing that, because he says, one may approach any person and induce him to read Krishna literature, and here's why, so that in the future he may also become a devotee. So, as mentioned many times already by Maharaj and Mukunda Prabhu, that, this is the program. This was Prabhupada's vision, that, the people will get these books, they'll read them, and in the future, maybe in the very near future, maybe in a distant future, maybe in a future lifetime, they'll become devotees as a result of reading these books. So that was Prabhupada's vision, and that's why he felt it was so important. This is something to make people devotees. And, okay, so that's another reason, to do it. third point, another point is that it's not like there's nothing in it for us. It's not like, well, Prabhupada said it's important, we should do it, it'll make other people will become devotees, but, we're just going to suffer and struggle and, not really get anything out of it. No. Prabhupada said on various occasions that the way to be very quickly, very easily recognized by Krishna is the preaching, is the missionary activities, which is spearheaded by book distribution. So that's, it's definitely something in it for us. It's the way we can become very quickly and very easily recognized by Krishna, and that's our objective, right? I mean, what else is our objective? We want to become recognized by the spiritual master, recognized by Krishna, and that's when you get blessed, pure devotional service. So, and here in this purport, Prabhupada says, he says that same thing basically in so many different ways. He says, such activities will always remind the devotee of the Lord's lotus feet. Well, that's important because, we know from I think it's the Padma Purana, and this verse appears in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. That's where I know it from. Smartavyam satatam vishnuras, na smartavya najatu sit sarve vede nasedasura etayora vakinkara. Always remember Krishna, never forget him. That's the most important of all the regulative principles. All the other rules and regulations are meant to be servants and assistants to that basic principle, right? So that's, very fundamental. And Prabhupada's saying here that this activity of book distribution will always remind the devotee of the Lord's lotus feet. So, there you have it. It's not something that you do and then when you come back you got to recover and think of Krishna again. No, it's going to help us think of Krishna. It's not going to be a distraction. It's the exact thing we need to do to achieve the objective, which is to always remember Krishna and never forget him. This is be the most helpful thing. Then another point, he goes on, he elaborates upon that point. He says, by fully concentrating on books for Krishna, one is fully absorbed in Krishna. This is samadhi. So not only will it help us, remember Krishna, it'll help us not just casually remember Krishna, but it'll help us get absorbed in the thought of Krishna to the point where we are, as Prabhupada says, this is samadhi. Samadhi is like the perfectional stage of consciousness. Right? In the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, how's that go? Find it real quick. Yeah. In that stage of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely strained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. So it's being referred to, samadhi is being referred to as a perfectional stage of consciousness. So book distribution, another result of book distribution is that it'll not just enable us to, as I said, casually think of Krishna, but get absorbed in the thought of Krishna to the point where we're in samadhi, a perfectional stage of consciousness. Okay? So I guess that's as far as you can go with that, right? Nope. Because there's different types of samadhi. There's different types and different levels of samadhi. So book distribution gives you the opportunity to enter into the highest level of samadhi. And my Shastric reference for that is that, sort of Shastric reference, in Los Angeles in the early 70s, there was this thing called the Gopi Bhava Club, right? And, actually, no, that's unrelated. At one point, Ramaswar Prabhu was preaching that book distribution was in the mood of the gopis, okay? So some devotees kind of like, they were uncomfortable with that. And they wrote Prabhupada. They wrote Prabhupada a letter saying, hey, he's preaching that book distribution is in the mood of the gopis. They may be feeling it's a little sahaja. But Prabhupada wrote back and said, yep, that's right. I can't remember the exact words. I couldn't track down the letter. But Prabhupada, in essence, he wrote back saying, yeah, that's right. It's in the mood of the gopis, that the book distributors are just like the gopis. What is the mood of the gopis? They're prepared to do anything to please Krishna. You see? So Prabhupada was in that mood. He was saying, yeah, book distribution is in the mood of the gopis. The book distributor is prepared to do anything. Tolerate, as Maharaj was talking about yesterday, a cold winter in England or in Northern Ireland. Imagine what it's like being cold for like 4 or 5 months straight. That's hard, So book distributors, they prepare to deal with rejection and, heat and cold and you name it. It's just like, it's in that sense, it's in the mood of the gopis. Prepare to do anything to please the spiritual master and please Krishna by distributing these books. So that's there. So I thought at this point I'd like to say something about how to do book distribution. Okay, so I think I've tried to say that why we should do it. Prabhupada, it's important. Prabhupada says it's important. It's the way to spread Krishna consciousness. It's the most beneficial thing we could do for ourselves. Okay, now I'd like to say something about how to do it, and I want to try to attempt to do this in a way that I don't get myself in trouble, because yesterday Maharaj was giving in his talk, he referred to an exchange between Prabhupada and Tripurari at that time. He was a brahmachari here in Atlanta, where Tripurari made the statement, Prabhupada, when we go to the temples, they ask us to give class in book distribution technique. And Prabhupada said, so what do you tell them? And he said, well, we tell them first they have to chant their rounds and follow the regulative principles. And Prabhupada cut him off. He interrupted him and said, yes, that is our only technique, to become very devout followers of the rules and regulations. So Prabhupada did say that. Okay, so that's obviously 100% correct. But be honest with you, yet at the same time, on other occasions, Prabhupada did give devotees specific instructions how to do something. See, like for instance, in Surat in 1971 or 2, I can't remember, I think it was 71, Prabhupada was there, and he told Hamsaduta, go out and make some life members, And Hamsaduta didn't feel comfortable. He didn't do it. And then the next day, Prabhupada said to him, so did you go? And he said, no, Prabhupada, I didn't. I had other things I had to do. And Prabhupada said, no, go downtown and approach some of the merchants and make some life members. And he said, okay, yes, Prabhupada, I'll do it. And then the next day he came back, and same thing. He didn't do it. He didn't do it. And Prabhupada said, well, so how did it go? He said, well, Prabhupada, I didn't do it. Prabhupada didn't get angry with him, but then the third time, Prabhupada goes, no, look, just go ahead, go downtown. I'm going to tell you exactly what to say. So Prabhupada said, this is exactly what you said. And he didn't say the exact words in his memory, in his interview, but Prabhupada told him exactly what to say. He said, first you say this, then you say that, then you say this, and then you ask, please come become a life member, give 1,111 rupees. Okay, so Hamsaduta thought, okay, this is the third time he's asking me. Then he said, Papa, they don't know how to speak English, so they won't understand the word I'm saying. And Prabhupada said, that's okay, go with a translator. So Hamsaduta realized, okay, Prabhupada meant business. Prabhupada means business. I better do this now. So he did. He got a translator. He went, and he did exactly what Prabhupada said. He said something, the translator said that. He said the next thing, and then the final thing was, and could you, please become our life member and give 1,111 rupees. And the man translated, and then he said the next thing he saw was that the merchant just took out his pen, took out his checkbook, took out his pen, and wrote a check for 1,111 rupees. Okay, he thought, oh, okay, it worked. Then they went to the next place. This is the first place. Second place, he did the same thing, same exact thing. Okay, and I think he did the close, and then the same thing. He saw the same thing. The merchant reached for his checkbook, reached for his pen, wrote out a check for 1,111 rupees, and he went, oh. And then they went to a third place, and same thing. He made the request, same thing. The merchant grabbed his checkbook, so he went back, and when he saw Prabhupada, he gave him all 3 checks, and Prabhupada said, "Now do you understand?" That was Prabhupada. Now do you understand? In other words, Prabhupada knows what he's talking about. And he knew he knew that would work, and he knew exactly how to tell him how to do it. And when he did it exactly how he did what Prabhupada wanted him to do, and he did it exactly how Prabhupada wanted him to do it, and it worked. And like magic. He felt it was like magic, because, that was what Hamsaduta was saying. He was saying, I was astounded. I just said these words, and out came the checkbook, out came the pen, and he couldn't imagine it could be be so simple and successful like that. So there is sometimes room for technique. I mean, Prabhupada, as another small example I could think of is Prabhupada taught Bhakti True Maharaj how to make a particular eggplant preparation. He didn't just tell him, go in the kitchen and be sincere, He taught him exactly how to, right? He taught him exactly, that's important, to be sincere. That's super important. But he taught him exactly how to do it. He said, you do it like this, you put the ghee in, then you fry it like this. I can't remember the details. But, Prabhupada taught him exactly how to do it. And then actually, when he finally asked him to do it one day, Bhakti Maharaj didn't do it the way Prabhupada told him. Because, but he wasn't, it was because it wasn't, he didn't do it the way Prabhupada told him to. And when he served it to Prabhupada, Prabhupada said, what is this? And they called Bhakti Maharaj in, So he called him in. He said, I personally taught you how to do this. How is it possible that you've forgotten? And he was uncomfortable, but he explained, Prabhupada, I didn't forget, but you're not well. You're not in good health. And this recipe calls for a lot of ghee and a lot of chili, and I just didn't think it would be good for your health. So I omitted the chilies and I reduced the amount of ghee. He did it thinking that, out of concern for Prabhupada's health. So that was the reason. But, Prabhupada did give him a specific way to do it. So sometimes technique is there. And, another example of that is there are many wonderful cooks within ISKCON. Two very famous cooks that I've had the good fortune to meet and know. One is Yamuna, Mother Yamuna, Devi Dasi, and Korma. So I only met Mother Yamuna once in London. She was there. She was the head cook, of all things, for the 25th anniversary of the installation of the deities in Soho, or... Yeah, sorry. Radhalandanishwara, right. Right, Radhalandanishwara, sorry. I guess was there even, so... Anyway, so she was the head cook, so I got introduced to her. I never had met her in person. She was, she spent about, very politely, a minute or two with me, and then she said, I'm sorry, I have to get back to work here, She was the head cook. And Korma, who I got to see in action in Australia, because I spent 11 years there. So now Korma was... as I said, definitely being sincere and following the regulative principles, and that's there, okay? And Korma was a great example of that. As I said, I spent time there. I spent time in the Melbourne Temple. Korma was a sadhaka. Korma was always at Mangal Arati, chanting his rounds right there in the temple room, super enthusiastically. You could see he was really into it, reading Prabhupada. He did everything, okay? But when he was in the kitchen, he was like a chemist or a scientist. He was very precise. I was in there cutting vegetables. I was like a younger devotee, a new person there, and he was in charge of the whole thing. And I could see, he was going around he had different people doing different things, and he'd be telling them exactly how to do it. No, like this. You cut it like that, and spice it like this. You measure it. Everything was very precise. It wasn't just like, okay, everybody, did you chant good rounds? Just go and just be sincere. It wasn't like that. It wasn't, did everybody chant their rounds today? Did everybody make it to Mangal Arati? Okay, then just pray to Krishna and be sincere and everything. No. He was very precise about what you had to do and what you shouldn't do. And so, in other words, it's just part of devotional service. Part of devotional service is learning how to do it very accurately. And the best way to learn is from somebody who knows how to do it. I had a friend good friend of mine, was growing up. He went to Cornell University. He was studying construction and specifically carpentry. And I went to visit him about, I guess it was 10 years ago in Hawaii, and he told me, I practically learned nothing when I was at the university. It was all theoretical. He said, everything I know about carpentry, or like 95% of it, I learned on the job. When I was actually started working as an apprentice to skilled carpenters, because they show you stuff. They show you how to take a notch here, how to put, they show you how to really do it, and then you learn by doing. in Kali Yuga, a lot of us, we learn by doing because we're not Shrutidaras. That's there. And, we read about it in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, but for most of us, the most effective way is to learn by doing something, hands-on, and to learn it from somebody who knows, and ideally who's a devotee. Because sound vibration, consciousness is carried by sound vibration. See, so we want to be always associating with devotees. So to learn a devotional art, rather than consult, for instance, sort of a karmi book about sales psychology or something like that, you'd learn something probably. Better to learn it from a devotee who knows how to do it, who knows the art of book distribution. Prabhupada referred to the art of book distribution, because then you're getting, the techniques, you're getting, the tricks of the trade, and you're hearing it from somebody who's absorbed in Krishna consciousness. You're getting the benefit of their Krishna consciousness and the benefit of their know-how, their expertise, both things combined. Very powerful. So, okay, so I'd just like to share with everybody a few things about how to distribute a book that I kind of have learned from other devotees over the years. And I'd like to, what's the word? Disclaimer, not a disclaimer. It's not the ultimate. Hopefully later on today we're going to hear from Mahotsa, and we're going to hear something much more advanced. But because my results are about 10% of his, but 10% is better than nothing. And Maharaj was saying that, many, like yesterday, I can't remember exactly how he said it, but many hands make light work. So the way I'm distributing books, I feel like is something that anybody can do, and they'll get some result. Maybe they won't. I'm not getting. They won't get the result that maybe Mahotsa gets, but something's better than nothing. So I'd like to share with everybody what I do. So I distribute books mostly on college campuses, university campuses. We go out there and we just put a table out in front of the library or a student center building. I don't ask for permission because why give people an opportunity to tell you you can't do it? So I go with the philosophy that it's easier to get forgiveness than it is to get permission. And it works. About 90% of the time, nobody bothers you. You just put the table down and you do your thing, and it just makes it much easier. We have the same tables you use down in the dining room there. We use that exact same table, lifetime table. They're great. They fold in half, and they're very sturdy. They'll last for a long lifetime. Lifetime table, that's why they call it that. They last. They look good. They're durable. They take a lot of punishment. You just plunk it down there, put your books on the table, and I call students over, and I use. The most powerful thing is a compliment. Especially like on the parking lots. I'll always start with a compliment because the people on the parking lots, they're not kids, 18, 19, 20-year-old kids. These are adults. They're much more hardcore, So I say, excuse me, I'm usually wearing a hat. So I say, excuse me, I really like your hairstyle. If it's, if that person has hair, if they happen to have hair. I say, hey, I really like your hairstyle. And they look, and it's a compliment. Everybody likes getting a compliment, and this is bona fide, believe it or not. This is parampara, because Prabhupada used to quote Prabodhananda Saraswati, who used to say, I can't remember the Sanskrit, but the gist of it was, flatter them like anything, flatter them like anything, and then ask them to, consider them about the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. So it is bona fide. That's where I got it from, and it works. So I say, excuse me, I really like your hairstyle, and they kind of look up. And then I have my hat, and I take off my hat, and I go, I wish I could do that, and it's a joke, and a good way to make a joke is you kind of put yourself down. So, and I make a face like I'm really sad that I don't have any hair, and they laugh, So I gave them a compliment, I got them laughing, and then the next thing I do is a qualifying question. I say, you don't work here, right? You're just shopping, right? And they go, yeah. I say, okay, you qualify here. Yeah, and I hand them a couple of books, right? And I just say, this is, this is on, well, actually, as I'm handing them the books, I just read them the title of the book. I said, this is on self-discovery, journey, this is on self-discovery, self-realization, and meditation, and it helps to relieve stress. I keep it really minimal like that because I find, at least for me, the more I would try to preach to people or teach them something, boom, it just goes down like a lead balloon. They're just not prepared to hear about the truth of life from a stranger on the parking lot who they just met 5-10 seconds ago. So I just kind of read the title of the book and then hand it to them. And then I say, by the way, do you know how to cook? And it kind of throws them off balance. What does it have to do with anything? Do you know how to cook? And they go, well, yeah. I say, well, here. And I hand them a higher taste. And I say, this is an introduction to a plant-based diet. And they go, oh, okay. It lightens it up a bit, And then I might, if I feel like I need to, I might just say, so if it's a woman, I'll say, what are you, a nurse or a teacher? Because half of them are. Half of them are nurses or teachers. So they go, yeah, how did you know? So, they've been doing this for a while. Or if it's a man, I'll just say, so I guess you're an engineer or a businessman. Just something complimentary, something that looks like more than what they probably are. And then I just say, well, anyway, we print these books ourselves, and we don't sell them. We just, people give a donation. You're welcome to keep the books. Could you pitch in something to help out? Real nonchalant, because money is like, makes them nervous. As soon as they understand you want some money from it, it's kind of like, so I try to keep it real relaxed and nonchalant, like it's almost like I'm almost falling asleep, Anyway, we don't print them. We just ask people to give a donation. Could you help out? And they go, well, yeah, okay. Well, what's a donation? I said, just from your heart, And then just at the time when they're about to give, when they make the decision to do it, and they open up their wallet or they take out their credit card or something like that, then you suggest an amount. You say, well, typically people give something like this, and you obviously suggest something good, something that ideally you'd like to get, and then you negotiate. One common thing is that a lot of people say, I don't have cash. That's a very common objection. Well, I don't have any cash. And then I learned this from Sachin and Oipa. He says, you commiserate with them. I say, yeah. I say, no, nobody has cash out here. It's crazy, man. Nobody uses cash anywhere. And then they'll say something like, yeah, because we just, it's all plastic. I just got credit card. And then I go, oh, well, that's okay. I could take credit card. And then, you pull out your phone and you can show them, I could take credit card, credit, debit, Apple Pay. Or if it's more convenient, we could do, Venmo, Cash App, Zelle, PayPal, you name it. and for a lot of people, that works. You cornered them, and they just go, okay, and then you do it. So that's, the kind of what I do, and it does work to a certain extent. And another one point is when you do it, you got to really don't just say it mechanically. There was one time when Prabhupada was telling about how he was asked to be in a play about Lord Chaitanya, and he was Advaitacharya, and it was their director was a famous author or playwright, and he was kind enough to direct this group of young people how to act in the play. So Prabhupada remembers he was always being told by the director, I can't remember his name, Bosch or something, but anyway, what is it? Yeah. Girish Chandra Bose? Girish Chandra Bose. So he was a famous personality. So anyway, so he used to tell Prabhupada, feel like Advaitacharya. Feel like, in other words, don't just get out there and mechanically, meditate. I am Advaitacharya. I'm Advaita. So when you're out there on Sankirtana, when you're just, you got to be into it. You can't be mechanical. You got to really ham it up. You got to really get absorbed. And I've seen Mahotsa do this. Even before, when he sees the person, he starts kind of like, oh yeah, he starts kind of revving it up, right? He starts, saying his lines even before he's even close, the person close enough to communicate with the person. It's getting himself all, psyched up to do it. So that's important. And another thing is, so you might say, well, isn't that kind of like duplicitous? No. We're ambassadors of goodwill. That's the essence of. We're not out there to trick people. We're not out there to cheat people. We're out there as ambassadors of goodwill. But sometimes we have to do these types of things. It's a tactic. Prabhupada gave this example here in Atlanta in that conversation he was having with the book distributors. They said, Prabhupada, we're trying to make, maybe Tripurari or one of the other distributors said, Prabhupada, we're trying to make our techniques more honest or something like that, more straightforward. And Prabhupada said, nah. He said, look, he said, sometimes you have to be a little bit, not, tactful, he said. He said, and he gave this example of sometimes a parent needs to get his child to take some medicine. So he tells him, just take the medicine and I'll give you this luglu. And, and then the kid takes the medicine, and of course the parent doesn't give him the luglu because that's going to, but Prabhupada says that is not cheating, that is tactics. So in other words, sometimes, we have to do like that. It's for their own good. We're trying to engage them in devotional service, so sometimes you have to do these types of things. And, but ultimately, as we heard yesterday, and I'll kind of give another reference to support it right now, that it's dependent upon not tricks and cheating people, but on bhakti shakti, on spiritual potency. And a very good purport, which kind of where Prabhupada makes that point. This is from the Madhya Lila, chapter 7, purport, text 99. And Prabhupada says, and as Amrita Prabhava Bhashya, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that, well, actually, let me read the translation. After some time, Lord Chaitanya would embrace these people and bid them return home, having invested each of them with spiritual potency. So this is from the chapter, The Lord's Tour of South India. And it's talking about how the people that Lord Chaitanya came in contact with became empowered to not only be Krishna conscious, but to give it to other people. So in the purport, Prabhupada says, Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that this spiritual potency is the essence of the pleasure potency and the knowledge potency. By these two potencies, one is empowered with devotional service. Lord Krishna himself, or his representative, the unalloyed devotee, can mercifully bestow these combined potencies upon any man. That's important right there. Any man. It means you, me, any man, Anybody can become, according to this. It's that, you hear that expression, there's no material impediments. This is what we're hearing about now. Anybody can get these, can be mercifully, have these potencies mercifully bestowed upon them by Lord Krishna or his representative. So that's really something to remember. It says, being thus endowed with such potencies, one can become an unalloyed devotee of the Lord. Anyone favored by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is empowered with this bhakti shakti. Thus the Lord's followers were able to preach Krishna consciousness by divine grace. So ultimately, it's all about, becoming empowered with this bhakti shakti. But these other things are just part of the process for qualifying ourselves to get that blessing of the bhakti shakti, the sadhana, the learning how to do it. It's part of the process. By doing those things, by being strict sadhakas, and by trying to learn about the art of book distribution from people who already know how to do it, we're demonstrating to Krishna within our heart. We're demonstrating to our guru that we have the desire. We're demonstrating our sincerity by making those two efforts. And then the response is, the reciprocation is, then you get, these two potencies are bestowed upon you. You get the blessings, and you become empowered to actually do it. You get the bhakti shakti, and then you're good to go. Okay, so that's a point. Okay, another point, kind of related, but just, unrelated. We should never get psyched out. Don't get psyched out. Psyched out, you know that expression? Okay, I guess it's from the 70s or something like that. Don't get discouraged. Don't get discouraged. And Prabhupada tells a story about this, how it works. Prabhupada told this story about Chakra Bhagavan. Anybody know the story, Chakra Bhagavan? Okay, good. It's nice to tell a story that nobody's heard. You probably have. Once I start telling it, you'll know it. But so Prabhupada tells this story about a few times. I went through the database. I found it like maybe half a dozen times. So there's this man, and he lived in a village, and he had become like successful, and he had friends, associates, the other people in the village, and they, like people tend to do, they became envious of his success. So they got together and they decided, well, we got to do something to get this guy. It's not, well, how is it that he's so successful and we're struggling like this? So they devised this plan that there was 10 of them, and they would put themselves, they knew his route, they knew that the route he would always take to go to work or to go home or whatever. So they planted themselves in 10 different spots along the road. And when Bhagavan came, chakra means circle, Bhagavan, literally. And so when they came, they would say to him, "Oh, you've become ghost. You've become a ghost. You're." And then what are you talking about? First, when the first person told him that, he said, "What are you talking about? I haven't become a ghost. Don't be ridiculous." And then, he went on. He came to the next one. The next one sees him and goes, "Oh, what's happened? You're dead. You've become a ghost." He looks at him, third, fourth, fifth. So Prabhupada said, by the time he got to the 10th person, and the 10th person told him that, Prabhupada said he started doubting himself. After the 10th person, it was a conspiracy. So after the 10th so-called friend told him, "You've become a ghost," he went off and he was thinking, maybe I've become a ghost. Well, why is everybody telling me? Maybe I have died. He actually started doubting himself. So the point is that's the whole material world is chakra Bhagavan. It's just like one big chakra Bhagavan out there. We're understanding things correctly. We're thinking straight. We got it right, okay? But you go out there and do that association is kind of causing us to, have doubts about, well, is Krishna really God? Even is there God? That's the effect of the non-devotee materialistic association. So as I said, you can't get expression of the 70s. Don't get psyched out. Don't get confused or discouraged. Don't get mental. Yeah, don't get mental. It's propaganda. It's conspiracy. That's how Maya works. So we should always be focused and be confident that no, we're right. That's not what the reality is. The reality is what I'm going, what I've accepting here in Krishna consciousness and going out there to give these people. Don't get affected. We have to give them our association and not be adversely influenced by their association. And okay, on this point about how to be strong, because it's to do that we have to be strong in Krishna consciousness. Just a couple little excerpts here from lectures that I heard. Let's see here. I can't find this one. I'll go on to. Okay, here we got it. So, we all know with tapasya, and Prabhupada. This is something Prabhupada said about tapasya, just a very simple little definition. He says, tapasya means just like a thief wants to steal others' property. But if he thinks at the same time, no, it will be criminal. Father has said it is criminal. I shall not steal others' property. Prabhupada says, this is tapasya. Because I have got the inclination to steal, to usurp other things, but if I restrain myself by the order of the Father or the Shastras, then that's good, that's tapasya. So in particular and specific, a very important tapasya is celibacy, and this is something Prabhupada said I think it was a different lecture about the importance of it. He says, brahmacharya means stopping sex life or controlling sex life. Therefore, Vedic civilization from the very beginning trains boys to become brahmachari, celibacy. He says, not that modern days. He says, the schools, boys and girls, 10 years, 12 years, they're enjoying. Listen to this now. He says, the brain is spoiled. They cannot understand higher things. The brain tissues are lost. So remember that. Some of us, unfortunately, have already lost a good chunk of tissues. But from this point onwards, I'm trying to mention, particularly for the benefit of the younger devotees here, brahmacharya, very important for that reason. If you don't, your brain becomes spoiled by, not observing that, and you lose, you cannot understand higher things. Brain tissues are lost, so it's something to just remember. On the point of getting the blessings, Maharaj was talking yesterday about we have to seek the blessings of the devotees like that. So one anecdote that comes to my mind on this particular point about, to put it in a proper perspective, there was a devotee named, Prabhupada disciple, named Vishal Prabhu. Raise your hand if you know Vishal Prabhu. Yeah, very wonderful devotee. And he was, actually he was a great book distributor. He went out pretty much every day for years and years and years and years. He, at one point, was distributing books in Vrindavan. He had a table. He might have been the first devotee to do a book table. He had a table in the courtyard, out in the front there of the Krishna Balaram temple. And so one day, Prabhupada was coming out. Prabhupada was there, and he was doing his circumambulation, or his walking, and he saw Vishal. He says, "So, what is the report, about the book distribution?" So, Prabhupada, I wasn't able to distribute yesterday. I had to do this, that, or whatever. He said, but can I have your blessings? And Prabhupada said, "More books, more blessings." That's a famous one. You heard that one? More books, more blessings. So in other words, it's, yeah, we want blessings. And Prabhupada said, okay, sure, but, let's some service. So that, it's not just like a Shakti pot. If we want the blessings, we have to prepare to, surrender. And the self-realized soul can impart, how's it go? Just try to learn the truth by approaching a bona fide spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, and render service unto him. And render service, not me, but I'm just in general, render service unto him. Then the result is the self-realized soul can impart knowledge because he has seen the truth. So that's the formula. That's the secret formula, more books, more blessings. More service, more blessings. The final point I'd like to make is, yesterday in his class, Mukunda Prabhu, in answer to a question I asked, he mentioned this verse about a verse that's found, I think was in answer to my questions, about something Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said about how Lord Chaitanya is giving the highest to the lowest. And he recited the Sanskrit. And I found immediately I felt attracted to that. So I asked him after the class, I said, where was that verse from? And he said, Chaitanya Charitamrita, I think. And he found it. So he found it, and this morning I got a WhatsApp message from Vishnu Chitta Prabhu. He was forwarding me the reference that Mukunda Prabhu sent to him. So I looked at it, and I read it. It goes, Yo gena matam bhuvanam dayalor ulag hayan ap yakarot pramatam swaprema sampat Sudaya Bhuteham, Sri Krishna Chaitanyam Amam Prapaje. And I thought to myself, oh, that sounds familiar. And then I read the translation, and the translation didn't really click, but I still kind of thought, well, no, that sounds familiar. And then I remembered, wait a second, giving the highest to the lowest. And then I remembered, yeah, that is familiar. I do know that. That was something I read a little over 50 years ago. I got this book, not this exact book, but I used to work for Amala Bhakta Maharaj. Does anybody, if you know him? He used to manage a Hatha Yoga center in Midtown Manhattan. Back in those days, it was maybe the only one. And I used to go there and do service. So did Dravida. We were kind of... Anyway, so one day I was coming home from that, and I was just about... Because it was in Manhattan, I lived in the Bronx. So I was getting ready to go into the subway on 59th and Lexington Avenue. And I was just about ready to go down to the subway, and I was approached by a devotee, and he gave me a teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and he did his spiel, and I said, well, yeah, I'm interested in yoga, sure. And I gave him a donation, and then I took the book and I started reading it right away. And I remember, I actually remember, not that translation, but I remember reading the book and really liking it. And I was thinking to myself, well, I don't even know if I understand what I'm reading, but I really like this. But I remember the pictures. These pictures were done by Govinda Dasi. And I remember I really liked them. I was really attracted to them. And I remember reading this. And it didn't have the Sanskrit in the edition I got. That was put in later. But I remember reading, "Let me surrender unto the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is the greatest, most merciful personality of Godhead. And this part really got me. He delivers those who are merged in ignorance and offers them the highest gift, love of Krishna, and thus makes them mad after Krishna consciousness." So, I just finished reading about how Rupa Goswami met Lord Chaitanya. It says, when the two brothers heard that Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was staying there, they both became very much pleased and went to see the Lord. At that time, the Lord was on his way to visit the temple of Bindu Madhava. On the way to the temple, the Lord was chanting and dancing, and thousands of people were following him. Some were crying, some were laughing, some were dancing, and some were singing, and some were falling on the ground, offering obeisances to the Lord. All of them were roaring the holy name, Krishna, Krishna. And anyway, I remember that reading, being very attracted by that. I said, yeah, that sounds like where it's at, That sounds like where it's at. And then I read that verse, and I thought, well, there's hope. There's hope, because this is Lord Chaitanya is the most merciful incarnation, and he delivers those who are merged in ignorance and offers them the highest gift of love for Krishna and makes them mad after Krishna consciousness. I said, well, there's hope. Because I felt like, yeah, I'm merged in ignorance, but here's this high, most merciful incarnation. He's delivering those who are merged in ignorance and offering them the highest gift. So I was very attracted by that. And that was a little over 50 years ago. And then I heard it, I thought it was quite a coincidence that he quoted that verse yesterday. And just right before class, the two things clicked. So, yeah. So the books are really important. So this is my concluding. Am I going crazy over time? No. Couple of minutes. Okay. So the books are really important. I mean, I became a devotee. We've heard from the book. I found out I got interested in yoga. I was a student at college, and that yoga was like unheard of, kind of, for the most part. And I had some friends who were going to some hatha yoga class early in the morning. I went to a men's college. It was a women's college there across the street. And anyway, they kind of kept telling me, you got to go, you got to. I said, no, that's for women, I didn't want, but they finally bugged me so much. I said, I'll go once, just so you guys stop bothering me, So I went, and I did just some, asanas and like that. And at the end of it, I felt like, whoa, what the heck was this? Because I used to play a lot of sports. I was very active, I was fanatic, and I thought, this is doing more for me. This is doing more for my mind and my body than all that other stuff combined. What the heck's going on here, So this is not just, there's got to be some philosophy behind this. This is more than just bending and stretching, So I got the books. I bought books like by the popular yoga gurus at that time, the complete book of illustrated yoga, light on yoga. Don't have to mention the names of it. And I read the introductions, and sure enough, in all the introductions, there was philosophy, and it mentioned Bhagavad Gita. They all mentioned Bhagavad Gita. So I thought, okay, just what I suspected. There's something more to it than just exercise here, This is like a whole sophisticated system of, elevating the person, to a higher level of consciousness. And I said, okay, I got to get a Bhagavad Gita. So where I was, upstate New York, there was just, a couple little skimpy Bhagavad Gitas, which I got and I read. And I thought, okay, yeah, that's nice, but didn't really do what I was looking for. So one day I went to a bookstore in Midtown Manhattan, Doubleday or Bookmasters, I can't remember, and I went to the place where the Bhagavad Gitas were, and there was a shelf, and they had about 6 or 8 Bhagavad Gitas, and I was looking through them, and I saw those same skimpy ones that I saw up at college, and there were some, bigger ones, bigger, more impressive looking ones, and they were like, $30 or something like that. And I thought, I don't want to spend $30. And there's a lot of money back in those days for, just a college student. So then I saw one that was big, and I pulled it out from the shelf, and it had far out colorful picture on the front. I opened it up. It had well, I didn't know what it was, but Maharaj was talking about it. He said, why? The Devanagari. Well, it got me. I couldn't read it. I still can't read it, but I saw it, and I thought, whoa. I said, this is really, looks pretty authentic, and thought, here's this Sanskrit and what each word sounds like and what each word means. And, I said, this is like a pretty impressive presentation. It's pretty authoritative. And, I tried reading like a purport or two, and I said, oh, that's a little heavy. But anyway, and then I looked at the price. It was $4.95. So I said, well, this is value for money. So I bought it. I bought Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, in other words, and I used to read it. And, but after a while, I gave up, because not that I didn't agree. I kind of felt, yeah, this is right, but it wasn't what I wanted to hear, because it kept talking about how you have to give up sense gratification. So that's not what I wanted to hear, but I kind of, at the same time, I had respect. I said, this is probably right, but I just, not yet. So, and then some time passed, and then I met devotees. I was going on a camping trip with a friend to Bear Mountain State Park, upstate New York, and I got stopped by the devotees in Port Authority bus station. It was, I'm not sure who it was. I think it was Tosan Krishna's late wife, Mother Sunita, or maybe Mother Daiva Shakti, Alarka, Bhumi, Mother Sikandini, one of them. They were like a tribe, group. And they would descend upon innocent-looking young men, and, I didn't have a chance, So I took the book. I got it On the Way to Krishna and A Beyond Birth and Death, Easy Journey to Other Planets. That was combined into one book at the time. So I started reading it right away in the bus on the way up. And I remember, once again, feeling really impressed. Wow, this is pretty interesting. And I had this friend of mine, he was a really nice guy, and he was intelligent. He was a student at MIT, engineering student, bright guy. And I kept saying, hey, John, check this out. You're going to check this out? He said, no, I'm not. And he just wasn't interested. And I said, finally, I said, look, I found one of those paragraphs where Prabhupada kind of gives the whole philosophy in one paragraph, which he's famous for doing and expert at doing. So I said, okay, look, I'll make you a deal. Just read from there to there. And if you just read that much, I'll be happy. I won't bug you anymore. He said, okay. So he read it. And it was just, a paragraph was describing how we're not the body, we're spirits, souls, we're transmigrating through 8,400,000 species of life, etc. Like that. The whole philosophy in a nutshell. So then he was reading it, and I was just watching his eyes to see when his eyes came up, to see when he would be finished. And as soon as he looked up, I said, so I was expecting like he was going to go, wow, this is far out. He said, so what do you think? What'd you think? He said, well, how do you know it's true? He was a very empiric kind of, engineering student at MIT. He says, how do you know it's true? And I said, well, I don't. But if it is, that's really far. I mean, it's really important, and it's really far out, So that was that. I have to leave it at that. Then we got rained out. We got there. It started raining right away. Had to pack up. Came back down through. On the way back through, same thing. We hit Port Authority bus station. Again, devotees got me. And this time they gave me a Transcendental Teachings of Prahlad Maharaj. It was like a little brochure and a Back to Godhead magazine. And in that Back to Godhead magazine, there was an interview with Prabhupada. And I mentioned this yesterday. I'll mention it again just because it's an important point. These devotees asked Prabhupada, when can we become initiated? And Prabhupada said, you're already initiated. As soon as one becomes serious to follow my instructions, that is initiation. And Drew DeKarma remembers that. He got that same magazine, he read it. So it's an important point. So as far as Krishna life goes, when can we be accepted by ISKCON or whatever? You're doing the mission. Like Prabhupada said to those devotees, as soon as one becomes serious to follow my instructions, that is initiation. That's what's really important. And the formal initiation, that will be there. That's okay. That's important too. The official acknowledgement. But what Prabhupada was emphasizing to them is more important than the official acknowledgement is that you're doing it. You're chanting your 16 rounds. You're following 4 good principles. You're following this. So in the same way, here, whether you have official acknowledgement or not, so what? You're doing it. You're doing it. This is exactly what Prabhupada wanted. Sadhana, and then going out and distributing the books and doing Harinam daily and trying to cultivate people, help them become devotees. So, you're already, whatever, empowered. You're doing it. So that was an important point, I think. And I think there's an analogy there from that excerpt from from that conversation. And what was the final thing? Oh yeah, and I already told the final thing, how I got that Teachings of Lord Chaitanya that day. I read it continuously. I read it. I was in the train. It was rush hour, so it was packed. So I was reading the book, and I couldn't hold on to anything, but I couldn't fall because it was like a can of sardines. It was just so many people. If I started falling, I'd just fall onto somebody, and they kept me propped up. So I just kept reading the Teachings of Lord Chaitanya the whole time. When I got off the train, I read it as I was walking back to my parents' apartment. I was staying with them, and then I just read it till about 3 o'clock in the morning. And as I said, I remember thinking to myself, I don't even know if I understand what I'm reading, but I really like this. I think I was experiencing the transcendental potency from the book, And so I went back the next day to the same spot. Oh, because there was an address in the book, something Tiffany Place. Back in those days, they didn't have MapQuest or anything. I said, where is Tiffany Place in Brooklyn? I had no idea. So I rang up the directory assistants for the telephone people, and to see. They said, we give telephone numbers. We don't know where. I said, well, how would I go about finding this? Go to the library. Maybe it's in an almanac. So I went to the library next morning, Saturday morning. Couldn't come up with anything. So I just went back to the same place. And as I was coming, sure enough, as I got there and I was coming up out of the subway, another devotee was coming down into the subway. Is this interesting? Is it okay? Okay. Okay. So I'm coming. He was coming down. I'm coming up, and he's coming down, and he saw me, and he had a basket with books on it, and he had some flowers, long stem roses, and he handed me a long stem rose, and he asked for a donation, and I could see he was a devotee. He was dressed in saffron and everything like that. And I said, yeah, sure, I'm happy to give you a donation. I said, what I'm really interested in is, do you have any of those Srimad Bhagavatams? And, because all throughout the Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, it kept mentioning Srimad Bhagavatam, right? So I said, what's this Srimad Bhagavatam? This is the next thing I got to check out. So I said, do you have any Srimad Bhagavatams? And he just about fell over backwards, Whoa. This is 1973. Who asked for a Srimad Bhagavatam, in the subway station in 1973? He said, well, when he composed himself, yeah, I do. I said, well, how many could you give me for $30? That was all my money at the time. How many can you give me for $30? He said, well, I could give you, I've got first canto, part 1, 2, and 3. I could give you that. I said, okay. I took out my $30, gave him the money. He handed me the 3 books, and then we talked a little bit, and he could see that, this guy, and I told him that. He said, how did you know about Srimad Bhagavatam? I said, well, yesterday I got this book called Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and it kept mentioning Srimad Bhagavatam in it, so I thought I should get one and find out if it's as good as the other one. So when I said that, he kind of, devotees are smart. He started clicking, this guy might be more than just a customer from the books, So he told me about the temple, told me about the Sunday feast, and then he said, you know what, can I ask you a favor? I said, sure, what? And the other day, the other devotee did the same sort of thing. He gave me a brand new book, and I gave him a donation, and he asked me for more, and I gave more, and then he asked me, can I ask you a favor? And he took back the brand new one, and he gave me a used one. And I thought, I said, yeah, it's okay. Is it the same book? He said, yeah. So I said, it's okay, no problem. So I said, here we go again. He's asking, can I ask you a favor? Here we go again. So he said, it was early in the morning. It was like 10 o'clock. He said, these are the only Bhagavatams I have with me. And if I give them all to you right now, if I meet some other sincere person like you, I won't have anything to give them. So would it be okay if I just give you one right now? And you can, when you come to the temple tomorrow, because he told me about the temple, when you come to the temple tomorrow, I'll give you the other ones. So I said, okay. I figured if these guys are, all this, I'm reading all this stuff about love of God and the highest, spiritual truths. And I said, they got to at least be honest if I'm going to get into this, So I said, okay. So I took that one Bhagavatam, 1-1, first canto, part 1, and I just turned right around, got back on the train, went back to the Bronx, and I was, reading that all the time. And same thing. I said, yeah. And as I was reading, I was thinking to myself, well, this is the same thing. saying, I'm really liking this like I like the other book. So the next day I went to the Sunday feast, and I got there, and I was immediately impressed by how healthy and effulgent the devotees looked. Just all the devotees looked really healthy, bright-faced. They were all like bowing down to each other, and like something from the past. And I said, wow, this is kind of far out. And then there was the kirtan. Vishnu John Swami was there. He led the kirtan. And it was a very fired up kirtan. And I was trying to get into it. I could see how all the devotees were chanting and dancing, and I barely knew the mantra. I was, anyway, I did the best I could. And then the class, Kirtananda, he was Maharaj, and he gave the class. And I remember something he said in the class at one point. He said something that really clicked. He said, there's so many different spiritual products out there, something to that effect, and they're all claiming that they're the one, they're the absolute truth. He said, but actually, Bhagavatam doesn't do that. He says, Bhagavatam offers a criterion by which you can judge for yourself. And then he quoted it, 126. He said, I can't remember if he quoted the Sanskrit or not, but the way he translated it was, he said, that religion is first class, which awakens in its followers unmotivated, ecstatic love for God. That was the criterion. He says, we don't say we're the best. We offer you a criterion by which you could judge for yourself. And that was the criterion, that, as a result of whatever process you're interested in, if you're developing unmotivated, ecstatic love for God, then that's good. So I heard that, and I thought to myself, yeah, that's it. That's it. I remember, I was just part one of the audience, and thinking to myself, that's it. That's the goal. That's the goal of life, to develop unmotivated, ecstatic love for God. And then I thought, that was thought one. Then thought two was, well, if these people are intelligent enough to help me clearly understand that's the goal of life, maybe they also could help me make progress towards achieving that. That was thought two. And then thought three was, I'm going to do this. Right, I made a decision right then and there, standing there, sitting there, listening to the class. That's it. That's the goal of life. These people have helped me clearly and easily understand that that's the goal of life. Maybe they could help me make progress towards achieving it. And thought three was, I'm going to do this. But I didn't have a timeline. I just said, okay, I'm going to do this. Then the class ended. We went upstairs, and they served out the feast. And I was sitting in between two devotees, and at that time I was trying to follow a Zen macrobiotic diet, and I really didn't know what I was doing. I just, it was all very bland, steamed vegetables, tamari soy sauce. So I kind of did it for about 2 weeks, and just before I reached starvation, I would binge out and go to the health food store and buy dates and yogurt and this and vegetarian, but everything that I could possibly get my hands on that would taste good. And then I'd lament and feel all ashamed of myself for a day or two. And Bhoga-tyaga, in other words, exactly a perfect example of Bhoga-tyaga. I just go, try to be tyaga, and then when I binge out and I, lament and go back, do it again, I drive myself crazy. I was doing that for like 6 months. So anyway, so when they started bringing the feast around, I was refusing most of the preparations. And the devotee sitting next to me said, because this is 1973, he said, what's the matter with you? What's your problem, man? This is, don't you like vegetarian? I said, and he was getting on my case. He was chastising me. I was a first-time guest. He was a new devotee. He was, he meant well, but he was chastising me like anything. And I was kind of like, well, I didn't know what to do. But then the devotee on the other side, he had been around a bit longer, and he actually leaned over and he told us, he said, hey, shut up. Yeah, just like that. He leaned over to me, he looked and said, hey, shut up. You don't know how to preach, And he shut up. And then he said to me, so you don't like vegetarian food? I said, no, I like vegetarian food. I'm a vegetarian, and I'm following this, particular type of vegetarian diet. And he said, here's the thing. This is vegetarian. It's more than just vegetarian. This is all offered to Krishna. So it's called prasadam. It takes on a spiritual quality. Krishna accepts it, and he takes this food. It's vegetarian food that is infused with spiritual energy, and it's no material reaction. Anyway, he just explained the philosophy to me of prasadam, and I said, oh, okay, sure. In that case, yeah. And I just surrendered, and they were very happy. It was like something out of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the defeating the Mayavadi. So, and he said, he waved on the servers, okay, bring it on, Yeah, and then they just came, and I just took everything, and they just loaded me up, with prasadam. And I ate so much prasadam that I literally couldn't get up off the floor. I was sitting there, I had to open my belt, and then I had to sit there for a while just to kind of, deal with it all. And then after about 15 minutes, I saw the devotee who I gave the $30 to, and he gave me so I saw him, I said, hey, and he saw me, he was very happy to see me because, he didn't know if I would come or not. He was hoping I would, but, so I said, hey, I'm here. His name was Peter. I lost touch with him. But I said, hey, can I get the rest of those books? He said, oh, yeah. So, and he introduced me to Mother Daivi Shakti. Everybody know Mother Daivi Shakti? Very special devotee. She's been in Vrindavan for years and years and years. And anyway, so she was super nice to me. She was an expert preacher. She was like very, very friendly, very flattering. She knew the art of that, and very friendly. And she gave me the books, and she gave me a poster and a little record. And she spent like 20 minutes with me, just being very friendly and everything like that. And there was one or two other devotees who did the same thing. So then I left, went home, and when I got home, I was kind of like, whoa, that was fun. What an experience, that was. So there's no question of going to sleep. I was too kind of like jacked up, to go to sleep. So I started marching around my room, and I was chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, the tune I heard at the temple. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So I was just marching around my room, chanting that tune, and to be honest with you, I was experiencing a higher taste, by Prabhupada and Krishna's mercy. I was chanting, and I was like absorbed. I was tasting, So I was just doing that, and then I hear a knock on the door, and I said, "Uh-oh, it's my father." Actually, I didn't think, "Uh-oh," because I was in another world, So my father goes, "Do you know what time it is?" I said, "Well, no, not really." He said, "Well, it's about like 11, something like 11:30, 11 o'clock or something." He said, "Your mother and I are trying to get to sleep. Could you please, be a little bit more considerate?" I said, "Oh, Dad, I'm sorry, sure. So I'll stop right away." So, I stopped. And I said, "Okay." But I couldn't, as I said, no question of going to sleep. So I thought, well, okay, let me check out this stuff I got at the temple. I opened up the poster. It was the picture of Krishna Balaram that used to be on the cover of the volume 3 of the Krishna book. And I looked at that and I thought, whoa, those are the two most beautiful people I've ever seen. And I heard that Prabhupada said the person who had painted, I think it was Bhadaraj, I'm not sure who was the artist, but Prabhupada said something good about that painting. He said that was, whoever did that had really got some mercy to be able to do that, because the facial features and everything were very beautiful, Anyway, I was really impressed by that. And I thought, okay, wow, this is really beautiful. Let me put the record on. And I had a little record player, smaller than this table, And so I put on one side, and it was Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana Hari, Govinda Jaya. I thought, I listened to that once, and I thought, that's nice, I like that. I didn't dislike it, but it didn't really kind of, do anything special. But then I put the other side on, and it was Govinda Madi Purusham Tamam. And I heard that, and as soon as I started hearing that, I went, practically, I think, tears coming. It just was really moving, very moving, and the words were there, So on the jacket cover, so I could read and see what it was that it meant. And I listened to it once, and I thought, wow, that's really. I got to listen to it again. So I put it on again, and I listened to it again, and I put it on again. I made it a little louder, because I was enjoying it, and I made it a little louder, and I listened to it again, and then I listened to it again, and each time I kind of made it a little louder, but not. If I had totally forgotten about, that my father had come to the door, and after, I think I must have listened to it about a dozen times, it's not that long, and then again, and I answered. My father goes, "You are really inconsiderate." your mother and I have been trying to get to sleep now for like a half hour, and I said, Dad, I'm really sorry. I'll stop everything now. You don't have to. I said, well, I hope so, And he closed the door. I can't remember if he slammed it or not, but he wasn't happy, So I thought, okay, well, anyway. So then I thought, let me go to sleep, and actually, no. Before that, I thought, I want to do this. I might as well just go. I might as well just go to the temple. It was midnight. So I thought, well, before I go, maybe I should check and see if it's okay. So there was a phone number. I rang this number, the temple number, and it was midnight. So somebody answered, and it just so happened it was a devotee who I'd met at the temple. His name is Nandana, a Prabhupada disciple. And so he was very nice to me, and he answered the phone. And I said to him, I said, hi, do you remember me? I was at the temple, and I really had a great experience, and I'm home, and I'm really, described to him what was going on. And the bottom line was, I said, can I come? Can I come down? And, just join. And he could sense that I was kind of hyped up, So he just said, well, hey, he said to me, do you have any idea what time it is? And I said, well, no, not really. He said, well, it's like midnight. It's like midnight, dude, That was I said, oh. He said, well, and he was very kind. He said, why don't you do this? Why don't you just, get a good night's sleep? And when you get up in the morning, come on down. We're not going anywhere. We'll be here. So I said, oh, okay. I realized from his mood that I was kind of, all hyped up. So I said, okay, yeah, that makes sense. So I decided I'll go to sleep. So I went to sleep. But at midnight, so about 3.5, 4 hours later, I woke up like somebody flips on a light switch, no alarm, just like somebody flipped. It was like, just as I said, I was totally out, and the next second I was just totally wide awake, and I thought, okay, I looked at the clock. It was only 3:30, 4 o'clock, but I felt fresh and wide awake. I thought, well, I guess I might as well just go down to the temple. And I did something I didn't usually do. I took a shower, put on. Yeah, that wasn't my habit. I guess Krishna was already helping me, I took a shower, I put on clean clothes, and I just hopped on the subway and I went down there. And when I got there, he was there. That same devotee was there. He immediately let me in, and they gave me some beads, and they were chanting japa. I missed Mangalarti, and they were chanting japa. And so I was there, and then some devotees came up to him, and they said, hey, you can't just let that. I had a beard at that time. I had a beard, not an afro. Like my hair was too thin for that, but it was just, it was growing out, and I had a beard. And so, the devotees approached him and said, you can't just let that guy in here like that. We don't even, you could be a crazy guy for all you know. And so I could see that was what was going on. That was the conversation. So they came up to me, and they said, he came up to me and said, would you be able to do some service? I said, yeah, sure. What would you like me to do? He said, well, could you go out and just clean the steps out there and, like sweep everything and clean it up outside? I said, yeah, no problem. So they gave me a broom and a little dustpan and this. And so I went out there, and I was out there for about 5 or 10 minutes just kind of sweeping and cleaning, And then he came out and said, it's okay, come on back in. They just wanted to see if I was sane or not, I guess, So they invited me back in, and then I just got to, I got to stay, and I stayed they had a policy that you could stay for 3 days, and then, then you had to. Oh yeah, they had a special apartment. They had an apartment that was like a few blocks away from the temple, like a halfway house or whatever you want to call it, and so the brand new people like myself could stay there, and that way they could come to the program and be part of the whole thing. So I got to stay there, and when 3 days were up, the acting temple president came to me and said, well, you have to, you've been here 3 days now, so you have to leave, and, you come from home. I said, oh. I said, I live in the Bronx. It's like, it's take me about like an hour and a half to get here and an hour and a half to go back. I try to make it attractive for him. I said, I could be doing service all that time. I mean, can I? He said, well, we have a policy. I'm sorry, we have a policy. So I said, well, could you make some sort of a concession or an exception? He said, I was really twisting his arm, And he said, well, I'll do this for you. He said, you could stay till the temple president comes back. Gopijana Bal. No, it was Bali Mardan at the time. He said, you could stay and he'll decide. So he let me stay a little longer like that. So that was another week or 10 days. And by that time, when the temple president came back, it was obvious that I was into it. I was doing everything, the whole getting up and doing service all day. So they interviewed me, and he asked me to read from the teachings of Lord Chaitanya out loud. I guess they wanted to see if I was literate. And so I read a paragraph, and then Bali Mardan, I remember he was there with Jayadwaita, was a brahmachari at the time. I think he was already a sannyasi, I can't remember. But he wasn't a sannyasi at that point. So he was, 73. So he was a grihasta, or brahmachari. Anyway, he leaned back on some bolsters, and he said, yeah, I'd really like to see you become Krishna conscious, Bhakta Jeff. And I felt really, it was blissful. He gave me the approval, and so they let me stay. And I remember one of the first things they asked me to do, this was like a brownstone building in Brooklyn. It's like had 1, 2, 3 floors, and then there was a basement that was below ground level, and the prashadam room was in the basement, and there was windows around the prashadam room, but the windows they didn't go. It was because it was basement. It was just they looked out into a pit. It's hard for me to describe it. It was like a concrete pit about 2-3 feet high and maybe 3 feet wide, like that, and it had a grating on the top. You see, and a lot of garbage would come in there, leaves, and people would throw stuff in there, and and then the rain, and it would get like that. So one of the first services they gave me, they said, I guess once again testing to see if I was sincere or what. So they said, could you go out there and clean that out? And I said, well, okay, I guess so, And they came, those big black plastic garbage bags? They gave me they came down with one of those. They gave me boots, rubber boots, and latex gloves that the women wear when they wash the dishes, And they gave me the big black plastic garbage bag, and they cut a hole in the top, and they cut a hole in the sides. So that was, it's like, and they said, okay, and they gave me another one to put all the garbage in. So I took a deep breath, okay, here we go. But I'd already, been taught the Hare Krishna mantra, and another devotee, I can't remember who it was, told me to chant the Panchatattva mantra. They said that, they told me that, there's 10 offenses that are considered in the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, but there's no offenses in the chanting of the Panchatattva mantra. So if you chant the Panchatattva mantra, you can get the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, very quickly, something like that. So I thought, okay, yeah, I'll do it. So I got in the pit, I crawled out through the window there, and I started chanting the Panchatattva mantra and then the Hare Krishna mantra. And I remember I really was feeling bliss and ecstasy. And I thought to myself, yeah, this is it. This is it. This is the last thing anybody would want to do. Clean out it's like almost a sewer, but here I am doing this like the most undesirable kind of activity, work, but I'm feeling blissful. I'm feeling blissful and ecstatic doing it because it's devotional service and I'm chanting, and so it helped me become very convinced that Krishna consciousness was totally the real deal, from that experience, and others like it. So anyway, thank you for everybody for listening for so long. I thank you very much. I hope I didn't really try anybody's patience too much. So I'll stop there. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, all of you Ki Jai. Jai. Anybody have any question or comment? Okay, I've talked for a really long time. Oh yeah, please.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me. Comment you made yesterday when Srila Prabhupada was speaking with Tripurari Swami, or Brahmachari, whatever he was, that our only technique is to be strict followers of the rules and regulations. So I remember hearing that tape. I think I still have it from 74, 75.
75.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there's one other point that was made there. Prabhupada says, every devotee has his own genius. And I always wondered, like, is that genius the super soul, or is that Shabdake Purusham Nrishu? Is it that particular ability that that devotee has, or maybe it's a combination of both?
Well, probably a combination of both, but certainly, definitely the super soul. Yeah, I'd say a combination of both, because everybody has their talents, psychophysiological makeup, certain talents and abilities that come along with the body. It's
Right.
just like cars come along equipped with certain things. But then, when you surrender, Krishna gives you inspiration.
Right.
So I think that's a big part of it. Because as we were reading, the Bhakti Shakti, that's really the ultimate determining factor. When you have the Bhakti Shakti, then you're empowered. And then a part of that is Krishna gives you intelligence, what to say, what to do.
Right.
You're going to hear probably in a few hours, you'll hear Mahotsa will give the talk this afternoon. Hopefully we're going to hear some really ecstatic stories about how, people take all these sets of Bhagavatams. Krishna inspires from within. You're saying things you don't even know you know. And you're doing things you didn't even know you knew how to do, and it's Krishna.
Regarding that quote by Prabhu Nanda Saraswati, I believe the original tape was called "The Art of Preaching."
Yeah.
And Prabhu said, "You flatter them so many. Oh, my dear sir, you are so qualified. Now just forget everything and take the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu." And you use the example of complimenting people on their hairstyle. So I was reminded of Srila Prabhupada on the plane. And Prabhupada wanted some water or milk or something. And the stewardess was going by, and, she was kind of giving Prabhupada a strange look, like, he was kind of weird or strange, dressed in robes, etc. And Prabhupada said to her, as she was coming by, "What a lovely hairdo you have." And she went, "Oh, thank you very much. Is there something I can do for you?" So
There we go.
And I've tried that before, and it's amazing, the psychology behind that. You just pay someone a little compliment, and it shows that everyone's looking for a little acknowledgement.
Yeah. It really does work. I mean, and for me, to be honest with you, it makes a difference between being out there and being miserable and just like pushing yourself all day and having fun. I actually have fun. I mean, honestly,
Sure.
I have fun on Sankirtan
Yeah.
because you really connect with the people. I feel like I'm getting on their wavelength. I like them. They like me. I'm having a good time talking to them. Whether they take a book or not, whether they give a donation. Even when people don't take a book and give a donation, I'll just say, "Hey, it was really nice meeting you. Have a great day." And they go, "Oh, yeah, sure, yeah." It feels good. It makes it fun. It makes it fun. It's definitely the way to do it. Compliments, jokes, and like that. And then just give them the book and like that. So, yeah.
And when you ask them, by the way, do you know how to cook? What if they say, "No, I don't"?
Same thing. If they say, it's a qualifying question. By the way, do you know how to cook? Yeah, okay, great. Here, this is an introduction to a plant-based diet. By the way, do you know how to cook? No. Well, here, this is an introduction. It's a kind of question that whatever they answer, they qualify. And you're moving forward in the whole process like that. So it works.
Thank you.
Anybody else, anything? Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.